Hello everyone, welcome to The Marketplace. Coming up this afternoon, Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta confident an agreement will be reached with official creditors over restructuring of Ghana's debt will discuss as meeting is set to take place today. Also coming up, interest rates fall once again with an anticipated ease in December 2023 inflation. Plus, Boeing 737 MAX 9 jets to stay grounded as inspections continue after part of an Alaska Airlines plane's fuselage fell off on Friday. We'll discuss the impact on air travel. My name is Daryl. Kwawu. Thanks for being with us. Details coming up. And first up, Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta is confident an agreement will be reached with official creditors over restructuring of Ghana's debt. He therefore expects Ghana to receive $1.15 billion in funding from the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank by the end of February. The bilateral creditors, according to Bloomberg, are nearing agreement on the terms of a debt restructuring. An agreement will enable the IMF Executive Board to meet to review Ghana's performance under a program that started in May last year and to approve a disbursement of $600 million, the second tranche of the $3 billion bailout. Now, partner at accounting and auditing firm Deloitte Ghana, Yao Latte, joins me on Zoom to discuss this. And Happy New Year to you, Yao. The cut-off date for debt restructuring is a major hurdle we expect the two parties to thrash out today and hopefully have an agreement on. Why is the decision on the cut-off date crucial?
So thank you very much, Daryl, and good afternoon to you, to your cherished viewers as well. And so the cut-off date, as you rightly said in your introduction, is crucial because as we speak, as a country, we historically were relying on some forex inflows. One of them was the euro bond that we were getting on quarterly basis historically. We are not getting that. So at the moment, we have to rely on the IMF quarterly tranches that has been agreed. As we speak, we are not too clear whether you've met all the conditionalities to receive the tranche from the IMF. And so one of the key areas or the hurdles that we have to cross is to agree on terms with the external creditors. We have gone through a painful domestic restructuring process. The IMF recommended to Ghana that we need a debt relief of about 10.5 billion. Our external creditors, the Eurobond holders alone, have 13.1 billion. So if we are able to secure about 40% or 30 to 40% of external credit holders, we get more than half of what the IMF recommended as what we need to bring us to debt sustainable level. As you recall, the IMF program recommended that we get the 10.5 debt relief, and that will bring it to a debt to GDP ratio of 55%. So for us to be able to reach that debt to GDP ratio target of 55%, we need to be able to secure this agreement with external creditors. So it is crucial, and not only for the inflows that we are expecting from the IMF, but it's also crucial that on our debt or path to achieving debt sustainability, we agree on terms with external creditors.
Well, the finance minister has been expressing optimism ahead of the meeting. What would be the best outcome, do you think? Which way would it go?
Yeah, so I think there are quite some good indicators, as was rightly stated in the budget presentation to government. So we have seen stability in the local currency. We have seen inflation take a downward trend. And we've also seen some measures that have been taken by government to increase the revenue base. I think these are some good indicators that ensuring that that's giving some confidence to government. And for us, the other good thing is that we're able to secure an IMF program, so we have someone who can, when the push comes to shove, can underwrite or provide some guarantee to the external creditors. So that's a good thing for us, and that's why I believe the Minister of Finance is quite confident. But I think what's important is for us to be mindful of some of the risk that we have or some of the hurdles that we need to cross. As I said before, the IMF has recommended that we need a debt relief of about 10.5 billion. what is critical, particularly engaging the external creditors, is what we call the comparability of how you treat these creditors. The bilateral creditors, the G20 debt holders, so China wants to be treated differently, the G20 debt holders want to be treated differently, and the Euro bond holders want to be treated differently. And so that is what watchers are thinking could prolong our debt restructuring process. If all these creditors are able to agree on terms and some of the proposals by governments today, and that's announced, I think it's going to be a good step towards the right direction, because we really need to have all these creditors agree on terms of what proposals is coming to government, and that will be a major step towards our debt restructuring process and also helping us secure the IMF tranche that we've been waiting for.
Yeah, and again, what should be the posture for the government to get the best out of this? We talk about the cut-off date, which is a major hurdle. Now, you also mentioned China, which is also a hurdle.
Yes, I think what we can do is, maybe I always refer to how others have achieved it. We have to go to the table with a plan in place. And a very good example is what Zambia did. So we have a number of Euro bonds that we have issued with various maturities and various terms. What Zambia decided to do was to restructure all their Euro bonds into two major ones. So the first one maturing in 2035 and the second one maturing in 2053. It's important that we have a plan to consolidate all our Euro bonds and all our external loans and facilities into what we call a consolidated loan facility or a consolidated Euro bond, reissue them, and have existing subscribers sign onto it with different terms. If we have a similar proposal on the table and the external debt holders think that in the first place will give us some relief to be able to service our debt, recall that Ghana suspended payments on external credits from 2022, December 2022. So it's been over 12 months since we suspended payments. And so external debt holders are quite concerned that when are you going to start receiving interest payments and principal repayments? So it's important that we go to the table with a plan that shows that we will be able to service our debt if they sign on to the new plan. And also, if the external debt holders are taking a haircut, they are taking a haircut with a view that they will actually reduce their losses. Because you don't take a haircut and then somewhere down the road, the government is also unable to service a new restructured debt. So I think what I would propose to government is that we should go to the table with a plan, but a plan that will be able to sustain, or a plan that will be able to continue on servicing our debt in the next few months.
What next after an agreement is reached with creditors? Safe to say we can finally have the IMF board review meeting on the 11th of January?
Yeah, so I think one of the key things that we created, or the challenge that we created, particularly for the international market, is when we issued a letter suspending payment of interest and principal on our external debt. So that reduced the confidence of investors. A lot of the investors that we engaged from the external source told us that their board had approved for them to write off Ghana bonds. So some of them have taken a haircut, some of them have actually priced them in their facilities in the near future. So I think a lot of these investors have reduced confidence in investing in Ghana and investing in Ghana bonds or government securities. So if you're able to reach an agreement, that will some way bring the confidence back. Mind you, government has indicated that maybe in the medium to long term, they are likely to go to the Eurobond market or the international capital market. If we want to go on that path, it starts with making sure that we're able to agree or have a debt restructuring process completed as soon as possible. The second is that it will help accelerate the entire debt restructuring process. If we agree on terms with the external creditors today, that will accelerate the process. We have some concerns that the external debt restructuring process will take about 12 months. Government is quite confident that we'll be able to achieve that by the middle of the year. If you're able to achieve that by the middle of the year, that will help a lot. But if we prolong for the next 12 months, that will result in a challenge for us. So for me, what is critical is for us to reach that agreement today. And once we reach that agreement today, we'll be able to accelerate the debt restructuring process. And I guess that will also ultimately lead to us receiving the tranches from the International Monetary Fund. As we are speaking now, we are not sure when we are receiving the next tranche, which is so critical to support our budget. The budget statement that was read, there's a portion of it that's supposed to be financed with grants and support from the IMF program. So if you don't receive that, we are going to have some challenges.
All right, Yaolate, partner Deloitte Ghana, will keep watching and come back to you for some more analysis. Appreciated. Thank you so much. Now, interest rates fell once again with an anticipated ease in December 2023 inflation. According to auction results by the Bank of Ghana, demand for treasury bills surged. And here's more in this report.
The 91-day bill eased to 29.19% from 29.24% the previous week. The 182-day bill also went down by 14 basis points to 31.74%. Again, the 364-day bill retreated to 32.34% from 32.48% previously. With the Ghana Statistical Service set to announce December 2023 inflation on Wednesday, January 10, 2024, it is likely interest rates will go down further next week. Meanwhile, the government got 15.24% more than the targeted amount of 2.837 billion cedis. The majority of the bids came from the 91-day bill. 2.143 billion cedis that were tendered were all accepted. It was followed by the 182-day bill, in which 595.72 million cedis were tendered. All the bids were accepted. For the 364-day bill, 484.22 million cedis of the bids were tendered. The uptake was 479.43 million cedis.
On Zoom with us is Senior Economics and Finance Lecturer at the University of Ghana Business School, Dr. Jabir Mohammed. Happy New Year to you. Thanks for joining us. Now, despite the decline we have seen in interest rates, Ghana still has the highest interest rates in Africa, which means the cost of borrowing for government on the domestic market keeps increasing. What are the implications for the economy?
Thank you so much, and good afternoon to your cherished listeners, and Happy New Year to you. When you have interest rates shooting up, it has serious implications on the economy, especially to individual borrowers and also to businesses, because businesses are going to be borrowing at a higher cost, which is likely to crowd out the businesses businesses from the financial market. Because if cost of borrowing is so high, investors or individuals who want to borrow to invest in other sorts of businesses might not be able to borrow in the first place. So I believe that this will have a serious impact on existing businesses, and also individuals who are also who are also supposed to borrow and buy goods from outside is going to increase is going to have a serious implication on our exchange rate. So these are some of the critical implications that we are likely to have. But mind you that if government is able to increase the rate of revenue within the first quarter of 2024, we are likely to have a serious implication on downward trend in interest rate. But this will also have an impact on inflationary tendencies. So if you have inflation decreasing at the end of the day, let's say in December 2023, inflation rate has come down, then we can have a serious implications on interest rate, because interest rates are driven by inflation, because investors are looking at the real interest rate that they are going to get as a result of inflation. So when inflation is very high, real interest rate is going to be low. So this also depends on government ability to request for more funding from the domestic market. So if in the first quarter of 2023, government is going to request for more funding from the domestic market, we should expect interest rates actually going up. But if the amount of borrowing is going to be low, then interest rates are likely to be low as well.
And so the concern is that the government will cause its debt sustainability level when borrowing from the domestic money market. But it appears government does not have any option, since it cannot really borrow from the international capital market now.
Yeah, government don't have any option in the international capital market, simply because we have serious implication on our external debt. And as already said in the first place, we cannot even get any form of bilateral debt from any of our bilateral creditors. So once we cannot obtain any amount of money from them, definitely the government is going to be relying on domestic debt, domestic borrowing. And also government may require Bank of Ghana to support its budget because we have about 50 billion deficit to be able to cover in 2024 alone. So that 50 million deficit that we have to cover in 2024 alone requires that we need additional funding from the domestic sources because the external sources have been cut off. So we have to bear in mind that interest rates are not likely to come down any moment from now. Even though we may have a downward trend in inflation, if government demand for domestic debt is higher, if government demand for domestic revenue is higher, obviously we are going to have a higher rate of interest coming up because, I mean, this is as a result of demand and supply forces. So we should expect interest rate to be higher as a result of government borrowing so much from the domestic market.
Well, speak about debt and interest rates. The government will be in a crucial meeting today to discuss a cut-off date for external debt restructuring. How do you anticipate engagements will go?
Well, I think Daryl had already said so much about it. But what I think is that even though they have to go there with a program, I also think that they have to reach an agreement with the bilateral creditors in a form that they are proposing December 2020, and government is also proposing, they are proposing March 2020, and government is also proposing December 2022. So I think that they have to reach an agreement, they have to strike a balance. Let's say they can use 2021 as a benchmark, depending on the maturity date of the debt that they have to strike out. Because if they use the 2020 agreement, it means that government will have to be servicing all debt from 2021, from April 2021, April 2020 to December 2022 and beyond, which government is finding it extremely difficult to do so. So to be able to close that kind of gap, then we need to come out with strike a balance. If indeed the balance can be in 2021, then that can also help government of Ghana to be able to actually finance the one from December, January 2022 to date. Because the creditors also don't want to lose out. Because if they agree to the December 2022, it means that all the debt accruing from whatever although it was up to December 2022 will have to be restructured. And that is what the creditors don't want to agree on. The creditors actually believe that it is better for them to allow government to continue to service component of the debt. That can help them to be in a better financial position. If they allow them to start from December 2022, it means that all debt preceding before December 22, they have to honor all those debt obligations. So the creditors don't want to forfeit all that amount of money. So they also want to have, they also want to have a benefit as a result of that. So I think that we have to reach an agreement, bearing in mind that the creditors, we need to have some confidence so that we can go back to the market and get something. But if you say that you want to have 2022 and they grant you that you can no longer go to the external market to borrow again because you already have about 50 billion to cover, which means that you have to crowd out the private sector in the domestic market and even go to back to Bank of Ghana for additional funding, which we are trying to discourage. And we are also in an election year.
All right.
So we have to be mindful about our expenditure, and that can help to reduce the rate at which we can increase our borrowing.
We just have about a minute. So with inflation trending downwards, we expect interest rates to fall further this year. Is there anything else the central bank can do to tame the high interest rates? Because average lending rate is hovering around 32%.
The central bank is already increasing the monetary policy rate. And that is actually what is going to continue to keep down the interest rate, inflation. Because inflation was driven by money supply. So it was coming from the supply of money. That is how come that our inflation went up to about 50-something%. You recall that the government of Ghana printed over close to 40-something billion last year, or 2022 alone. That catapulted inflation to about 54 point something percent by the close of 2022. And right now, they are trying to redeem the money back to the central bank by increasing the policy rate. So the policy rate is hovering around 30% or so. So if we want to continue to tame down inflation, then we have to increase or maintain the policy rate. And that is actually working currently for government of Ghana. Right. So government of Ghana can continue to do that.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us this holiday, Dr. Jabir Mohammed, a senior finance and economics lecturer at the University of Ghana Business School. I appreciate it. Let's turn to aviation now. And the U.S. aviation regulator has said 171 Boeing 737 MAX 9 planes will remain grounded until it is satisfied the planes are safe. The Federal Aviation Administration has been inspecting the jets after part of an Alaska Airlines plane fuselage fell off on Friday. Sean Mendes is an aviation expert and joins me on Zoom to discuss. It's great to see you. It's been a while, Sean, and a Happy New Year. That was quite a horrific incident, what happened last Friday. And now Boeing faces new scrutiny about the safety of its best-selling plane. Let's begin from there.
Thanks for having me. Yes, indeed. Happy New Year to you as well. And from an aviation perspective, the new year has started with a lot of drama. And, as you mentioned, this Alaska Airlines Boeing 737 MAX 9 was just taking off from Portland in Oregon in the USA when one of the exit doors that had been deactivated, so it's not a door that is usually used to enter and exit the aircraft, that exit door separated from the aircraft and effectively just blew away. It was subsequently found in a teacher's garden near the airport. And of course, the aircraft had to return immediately to the airport and land. Fortunately, there were no casualties, just minor injuries, and everyone was okay. But yes, it was a structural failure with the aircraft and something that obviously is of great concern to the airlines as well as to the FAA.
Well, so I believe now that other airlines are running checks on the safety of their MAX 9 jets. Is that likely to cause a disruption in air travel or some delays? Are we expecting airlines to make major decisions?
Well, the one thing which is good from the perspective of disruption is that this only affects the 737 MAX 9 aircraft. The vast majority of 737 MAX aircraft currently flying are the MAX 8 variants. So, for example, there are no 737 MAX 9s operating in Africa right now. The ones that Ethiopian operate are all 737-8s. And those do not have this problem. The particular issue over here is that additional door, which they need to have on the larger 737-9 so that there are more doors in case of an emergency. So, the larger number of passengers can exit the aircraft. There seems to be some issue with how that door is fixed to the fuselage. We don't know what the exact issue is yet. I'm sure the structural engineers at the FAA and Boeing and the airlines are looking at what failed right now. But this total thing affects, I think, 171 planes in the United States and totally around 250 total planes worldwide, 0 of those in Africa. So I think, passengers flying in Africa really are not going to be directly affected by this. But of course, the general questions in terms of how was this allowed to happen to a plane? I mean, this aircraft was brand new. It's barely 6 to 8 weeks out of the factory. So this was something that most likely was a fault in the manufacturing process. And how could someone like Boeing allow that to actually happen?
And what are the ramifications for Boeing? This should be a headache for the company.
Boeing, to get back to the reputation it had prior to the entire 737 MAX debacles back, in 2018 and 19 with the crash in Indonesia and the crash in Ethiopia. So Boeing is still desperately trying to get its reputation as an engineering company rather than just as, another for-profit company back. And issues like this are not really helping them. From my perspective, I see that a lot of Boeing's manufacturing, including the manufacturing for this specific door, is being outsourced to subcontractors. So, effectively the subcontractor makes this door and the assembly for the door and ships it to Boeing. And then Boeing just goes and fixes it onto the plane, which they go and sell to the airline customers. And while that is fine when the quality control is properly maintained, obviously something went wrong in the quality process for this particular aircraft. And I think Boeing really needs to continue taking steps to assure the flying public that they've not lowered their standards and that Boeing planes are still extremely safe to fly on. Now, again, I'm not saying at all that Boeings are not safe to fly on. I'm just saying that Boeing we know that Boeing did cut corners in the 737-8 MAX certification process with the MCAS system. And, we just got to hope that it's not Boeing cutting corners again over here and it's just a one-off, error or oversight that has caused this.
Well, I mean, you say that model of a plane or a jet is not operational here in Africa, but I'm sure there are passengers who have questions. So are we going to get passengers who are looking up at their bookings, trying to figure out, am I going to be on a MAX 9? Are people potentially going to look up their bookings to see if they're going to be on a MAX 9 and then cancel, or you expect that the impact is minimal, not just here in Africa?
Well, I think this is why the FAA and the airlines have taken the step to ground the aircraft until they're able to inspect that particular exit door, the plug door. Right now, they do not want this to be a panic where passengers start canceling flights or whatever. They want passengers to be assured that if you are getting onto a 737 MAX 9, it is not going to happen to your aircraft because the airline and the FAA and Boeing have just checked that exact mechanism to make sure there's no fault on your aircraft. So passengers can be reassured. The aviation industry always puts safety first. When something like this happens, there may even be an overreaction, but aviation tries to take every possible step to ensure that the same mistake does not happen twice.
Well, quick last question, your outlook for the aviation industry in 2024?
I think aviation in 2024 is going to continue growing. 2023 was the first year after the pandemic where we really saw no restrictions in travel around the world. And I think we've seen throughout the world and, especially in Africa, other than in South Africa, every African country has met and exceeded its pre-pandemic levels of travel. Ghana had already achieved that, 2 years ago, so it wasn't a big deal in Ghana necessarily. But, even South Africa is beginning to catch up now. They're about, I think, 10 to 15% below where they were in 2019. And the rest of the world, has recovered. So I think 2024 is going to see another year of growth. And I think globally 2024, just given the fact that, the markets continue to grow and we no longer have any restrictions, we're likely to see an all-time record in terms of passenger numbers. So I'm optimistic, and I hope that that issues like this and safety concerns don't stop people from getting on planes, flying, and seeing the world.
All right, great stuff. Thank you so much, Shawn Mendes, the aviation expert. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
And that's the marketplace. More news on our website, myjoyonline.com/business. This should be last time. It's a painful exercise. Professor Quartey cautions government against overborrowing. You can also read more about interest rates falling again. Government recording 15.2% oversubscription at the latest T-bills auction. myjoyonline.com/business. My name is Daryl. Enjoy the rest of the holiday.